Just a reminder, make sure to sign up for public comment at the sheet over there if you'd like to make some public comment. I'd like to call to order Florence City Council meeting for March 3rd, 2025. Please rise for a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Counselor Van Houten.
Here.
Counselor Stiefel. Counselor Mergelman.
Here.
Counselor Gardner.
Here.
Counselor Stone.
Here.
Counselor McKinnon.
Here.
Mayor Wolf.
Here. Item 3, public comment. Kevin Mulgy, Florence Fire Protection District.
So I'm the Kevin Mamalji, PO Box 19, Florence. So I'm the designated election official for the Florence Fire Protection District.
Kevin, can you just make sure is your mic on?
Sorry.
Thanks.
Yep. There we go. So just wanted to share a little bit about the upcoming election. I'm the designated election official for the Florence Fire Protection District, and we do have 8 total candidates that submitted self-nomination forms for the district to serve on the board, so we are going to have an election this year. So the next step in that process is certifying the ballot, and that's going to take place tomorrow. We're going to have kind of like just a using an app to draw numbers for ballot placement. So that's going to take place tomorrow at the Fire Protection District office at 11 a.m. You guys are welcome to join us, but we'll also have that streamed as well. And then once we have the name certified and verified and all that for the ballot, then we'll make an announcement to notify the public of who's going to appear on the ballot. So, and the election is going to be May 6th. So just wanted to put that out there. So 8 candidates. 4. Yeah. So, because with the special districts, and I guess it might be the same for the city government, but if there would have been only 4, there wouldn't have been an election because we would have just appointed those folks. But anyway, since there's 8, it's going to be pretty competitive. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Item 4, consent agenda. A, considering approving the minutes from February 18th. B, consider the city expenditures for February 20th and February 28th. C, consider approving the temporary use permit for the Florence Brewing Company. And D, consider the temporary modification of premises for the Florence Brewing Company. At this time, do any of the council members wish to pull any of the items on the consent agenda?
I would like to pull consent agenda C.
I would like to pull consent agenda C and D.
And I would like to pull A because I would like to vote on the other three, please.
Okay, you pulled A, okay? All right. All right, then, do we have a motion to approve consent agenda item B?
I'll make a motion to do consent agenda B. Approve.
Do we need to read out the whole thing? No. Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. 4A, consider approving minutes as written for the regular city council meeting on February 18, 2025. Do we have any discussion on this?
Yeah, I was not present, but I have read the minutes as written and also the YouTube, so I would like to vote.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion to approve item A?
I'll make a motion we approve item A, the minutes from the last meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll make a second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? I abstain. Okay, motion carries. Item C, consider approving a temporary use permit for the Florence Brewing Company. Tammy?
Yes, with the new paperwork, I would like to see the written emergency plan added to their paperwork.
Yeah, we talked about the emergency plan last time. And is that something that goes for each event, or is that a general emergency plan?
For each application, each event. Well, I mean, all of theirs are generally a street closure, so I'm sure that their emergency plan would look very similar for each instance, whereas like Junk Teak might be in the park and they might be in the street, so it could alter. But yeah, you can make that, or approve it with contingency if you'd like.
Any other comment on item C? Would someone like to make a motion or an amended motion?
Does Rudel have something to add?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
On C and D, because of the merchants parking and some of the stuff we've gone through and considering a parking lot in that area in the parade, I would like to ask that on July the 4th, the streets to remain open until noon, and then it can be closed. So we'll have parking for the parade. That's my consideration.
Yes.
Sure.
Would the applicant like to make comment on that? And Rule, why don't you go ahead and restate what your Your question is-
My only concern is we have merchants all the time about the parking and stuff on special events. And we turned down by the parking space back there, but then we always close the street down, which kind of nullified the parking. So I would like to request that we keep that street open until noon to allow for parking and for people getting through for the parade. And then after the parade, you can close it.
Our event usually starts earlier than noon. It starts as soon as the parade is finished, right around like 10:30, 11 would be the only thing. And then it's just a little hard to guarantee that the spots would remain open for street closure. We wouldn't be blocking anyone in at like a
Well, you
set
would leave
time.
the street open until noon. And then your event could start at noon. You could close the street.
The way that we do that particular event would be, like she said, to start as soon as the parade stops, which that would mean that our food trucks would need to come in and park prior to that, because as people are leaving, we don't think it's safe for big food trucks to be parking in the street as people are walking through it or moving their cars. That's why that day we,
Your event takes up public parking.
well, it's
for a
only
parade
9 spots. And
And
we've,
the street, and the mobility around the parade.
sure, okay.
That's only my concern. And we talked about that for a year, and I checked, and you have not requested a closing for Junkeek or Pioneer Day, so that's fine.
Yeah, we intentionally tried to avoid those
Yeah.
days with the
And I appreciate that.
downtown.
So that,
But-
I don't know if you can ask your food trucks to move in at noon.
It's just a little hard to guarantee that they would even have parking spots, because usually when the parade ends, not necessarily everyone's done participating in the fun events downtown. Just with the park and everything, most people just walk. So that's just the only thing, is we would hate to block other people's cars in, even if we started at noon with the blocking.
Well, and doesn't the parade get over at like 11?
Starts at 11.
Starts at 11, but
No.
it gets over at
Starts at
11.
We're worried about, and I would guess, talking about it, we figured the traffic would be pretty much cleared out of there by noon.
I believe the parade usually starts at 10,
Yeah.
and it's been over
Yeah,
about
10.
11 o'clock.
Yeah, the way I see it is the logistics of the food trucks, and then, you know, that's usually when I park there, I go straight to the park after the parade. So what's the caveat of if someone doesn't move their vehicle,
Well, if
they
somebody-
can't do their closure?
Could you,
So-
could you post a sign on that block saying, you know, no parking after 11 or 12?
So at the city, if those signs are posted, are we towing? Are we not towing? Are we, that kind of thing?
Well,
So
yeah.
it's a catch-22, really. So,
And our business sorry,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
our business that day is dependent on people as soon as they leave the parade coming. Some disperse to the park,
Right.
some come over here, swap around, but we're pretty slow by say 3 o'clock. We close that evening at 6 o'clock so that our staff can go and enjoy things. And I think that her and I are the ones that do the street closure and to move all the tables and chairs. Because we rent tables and chairs from Canyon Rental, to have the food trucks come
I
in.
can appreciate all that, but it is city parking.
Sure,
And you're
yes.
parking trucks in city parking for private business.
I would say at that point, I don't know if we could have that event that day then.
So how many parking spots are there on South Pikes Peak?
If you're headed south, there's 5, and then if you're headed north, there's 4.
4.
Official parking spots, I've definitely seen one extra squeeze in safely, but
Yeah, we've
The
always,
lines.
I think the count's always been 9.
During the 4th of July, Front Street is open, correct?
Yes.
Front Street's open. You can't go all the way down Front Street and then go around and go through Main Street, but it,
So they go back behind railroad. So railroads are, yeah, they block that.
okay, because I know there's other places to park on Front Street and back behind there off of Railroad Street, sort of near the senior center. There'd be places to park there also.
I've seen them park over by the bulk station too, right there in that area, the bulk station.
The bulk water station? Yeah. Imagine we'd have to be careful about that too, to make sure we don't shut off the bulk water station because people have the right to come in there and get their water that day.
And for right now, until the 100 East Railroad property is developed, the museum and the brewery during events are sharing that back lot. And we are parking in that back lot to make additional parking for John Q. Public. So we put our vehicles there. And just speaking to the food trucks, logistically speaking and maneuverability, yeah, it's definitely a catch-22, and trying to get in and get situated is and hooked up is also a concern. It's nothing you can just do within 5 minutes.
So that back parking lot that right now is, you have it fenced off with like a snow fence?
Yes, we
That-
left a gate opening on the east end with a sign that says parking for museum and brewery staff.
Okay. During the 4th of July, is that going to be the case, just brewery and Pioneer staff? or are you
That's
gonna-
what we do for that. Yes, it's brewery staff and museum staff that is parking in there. Yes.
Okay, I just wondering if you open that up to, a few more of the community parking, just have a few more spots in there, but, okay.
I mean, only because we have survey stakes in there. They know where the survey stakes are, and I've already replaced one.
Okay. Any more questions or concerns? Questions for brewery staff?
No, my only concern's that one morning, a whole bunch. And I don't do it, I know last year was a problem, and we said right then that we were gonna look at that again this year. Not to shut that street off on the real heavy weekends. But I think noon would be a good compromise.
We have consent agenda item C. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve that with or without an amendment?
We added the emergency plan, correct? So,
Yeah.
all right, to have an emergency plan,
Okay, go ahead and state the whole,
okay, approve the, a motion to approve the temporary use permit for the Florence Brewery contingent upon receiving an emergency plan.
hey, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion passes. All right. Item D, consider approving temporary modification of premises for the Florence Brewing Company. Okay, is there any more discussion on this?
Are we gonna make a motion on that?
Anybody like to make a motion for considering the temporary modifications with or without an amendment?
My motion is to leave it as it is written. Consider approving the temporary modification of premise for the Florence Brewing Company.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you. Item 5, new business. Item A, consider adopting an ordinance amending section 2.0405C, term of office.
Sorry,
is this
did you
city
guys
manager?
vote on D?
Pardon?
Did you vote on D?
Yes. The last one was D. Yes. And it was, it would have been 5-1. Okay. Yeah, a little confusing there.
Yes, Dan and I may tag team this one a little bit.
Okay, you bet.
So in the previous meeting and the meeting before that, you were looking at the Title II revisions to the code. And one of the revisions to the code, which was included in the council action form and in all the detailed list of changes, was the seating of the council. Because under Colorado statute, you are allowed to seat the council at a date in January. Sorry, I don't have that directly in front of me. I think it's the first Monday after the first Tuesday in January. And the reasoning for that was providing for a date certain for the council's seating, providing for if there's any election anomalies like we incurred in the last municipal election where it took a little while to certify the election results, in which the city of Florence really has no control over that whatsoever. And then also for practical purposes to get through the entirety of the budget process, because the budget process is essentially completed by the time the election comes, but can't be formally voted on until December because of when the mill levies and different things from the county come out. So there is no opportunity for us to move that date forward at all. So in the Title II amendment, you voted to change that to that January date to provide for all of those things. So when we were doing city council rules of procedure, which is based heavily on both statute and our own code, we found something about the mayor pro tem, which is only included in city council rules of procedure and when that can be seated. And then we found that in Colorado, in a city manager form of government, where the mayor is elected at large and not selected from amongst council members, it looks like when they changed that original statute, they neglected to change that piece of the statute. So, you know how we talk about holistic code revision and why it's important that you don't have contradictory things. So city attorney reached out to CML and peers and they said, oh, well, no one's ever found or pointed that out before. There's no statutory remedy for this. So what your ask here is, do you want to amend it where the mayor is seated after the certification of elections and the balance of your seats are seated in that January for all those reasons that were stated in the original and that I just stated, or everyone can be seated after certification of election results, but there's no option for moving the seating of the mayor in our particular form of government?
Yeah, and I would just add, again, this is pretty unique. Would love the statute to change, but I don't see that happening anytime soon, although it is on CML's radar now. That I would envision, or, you know, it's not my place, but that at the meeting that would require the mayor pro tem to be elected, which would be the first meeting after the election at the same time that the mayor is seated, that would be kind of a nominal interim type of appointment of that mayor pro tem until, and then assuming you choose to do the January seating, that then that full new council would have the chance to select their mayor pro tem at that time. Now, obviously, best laid plans can always get messed up, but just do know that it's kind of tricky and you have kind of two options, and I wouldn't say either one is perfect, but we've tried to explain and happy to answer any questions.
So, let me get this straight now. And you guys ask questions if you have them here. So, in December, we would be seating the mayor. The mayor has to be seated in December. Oh, after the election is certified.
Right. So
Correct.
most likely November,
like-
this past municipal election, it was almost December before we were able to seat.
Yeah, so in our case here, it would be, like next year, it'd be December 1st or December 15th. Those are the ones coming up. So at that same meeting, we would have to select a mayor pro tem?
Correct, regardless of which choice you select.
Okay,
here.
so that would disclude any new elected council members from having a chance to be in the mayor pro tem.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you did it as a nominal thing like Dan stated, or
Okay.
perhaps you select someone you know is outgoing so that it has to go with them. There are some options for working
There are some options
through
there,
that.
yeah. Because, I'd hate to see somebody who was elected not have the opportunity to be the mayor pro tem. I mean, that's, okay, but so there's a way to get around that then. Okay. I'd just like to ask some of the council members here, especially the new ones, your thoughts on this, because you are the ones that were affected by this scenario last December.
From experience, I think I would have rather waited until January and not have to just jump in without a lot of knowledge, just to get a little bit more staff time to catch up. So I like the January seating.
The only thing that I like the January seating too, because it's in step with the budget and the year and the calendar. The only thing that leaves us potential 6 weeks exposure to a lame duck council that could cause a lot of problems if they wanted to. That could be 3 meetings.
Right.
I think that's a consideration. I don't think I'm really concerned about that, but there's a potential there.
Looking at the calendar, I think it'd be at the max might be two meetings, but
Just on that point, I mean, and typically because of the way Colorado's statutes are written, those are important meetings because they're often passing the budget. Again, I think that's all detailed in the packet, but I did just want to highlight, we just finished the workshops. Often the budget is the council's chance to kind of present a vision and enact it. It gets really tricky if you're swapping people out potentially. And to be fair, people can get elected and they could be running on, this is a terrible budget that council just passed and I'm not going to let it stand. You'd be some tricky timing there if, a year's worth of work is, and knowledge to your point, Tammy, that just getting up to speed is tough at that time of year too. I'm not advocating either way. I'm just trying to point out all the issues in play.
And how many new council members would there be at the most?
3 at the most.
Absent anything weird, people could move or that type of stuff.
and technically it could be 3 new councils and then a new mayor also. So theoretically, you could have a new mayor coming in that wasn't part of the budget development. Like I say, from experience, it would be a fast learning curve. It would get steeper than what it already is right now. Yeah, and then if it, if a current council member, well, they would have been, so if someone who was on council is running for mayor, they get elected mayor, they get sworn in, then that council seat would be open for 2.
It would be up to council at the moment that vacancy is created.
There'd be someone else that would have been elected there because they would have been running for mayor. There's someone else that
Good
would have
point.
been elected there, but you'd be short 1 council member for those meetings, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Just one other thing I just thought of, or I forget if it's in the, I felt bad with the election this last time for the outgoing members who had planned on not attending certain meetings, but then it was like, wait, we actually need you until the new ones can be seated. So there's that piece to consider as well.
I like the January thought, but yet these are all good too. So as to Rudel's point during the workshop, what if we table this until next meeting? Give us a few extra weeks to consider these before we make our decision, because both thoughts are valid. And can we change if we decide to go to full January?
I don't think there's any issue like logistically with changing it because it's not something that's super urgent. It would require you to table your city council rules of, but again, that's nothing super urgent. There were a couple of minor changes in there, but most of those are just related to Title II. It's nothing that prevents you from continuing to do business as you have, or that is really a big change in how you would do business. So from staff's perspective, there isn't an issue with that.
I also have a thought. All of these what ifs could happen every year. We don't, you just don't never know, you know, the what ifs, so.
Well, the two big problems with, I see with the lame duck type thing is just a no-show. They elect, you know, rather than, and then the council would carry it anyway. After going through all this stuff and visiting with some of the staff, I'm leaning more towards starting the 20th. I think that's how I feel anyway.
When you say starting the 20th of January,
Yeah,
January, yeah.
Starting January,
Yeah.
the first year.
Okay. And another question that I had, if we did go with the January option, and I'm just looking at next year's calendar, just to, the first Monday after the first Tuesday in January is January 12th. We have the first meeting in January would be January 5th, the second would be January 19th. We could always call a special meeting to swear in the new council members. So they would be up and running and ready to go on the 19th. Okay, or maybe it is the 20th because that'll be one of the special days in January there. So, but that's another option that you could do. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. And I know last year we had a special meeting right at the end of, sometimes we've had to have a special meeting in December to do the final vote on the budget. Just because of the way the state of Colorado works, nothing that we
Yeah,
do.
I think it was the 30th or the 31st
You
this year.
will almost always have to have that because of the way the mill levy comes in and the budget calendar works. There will almost always be a special meeting for that.
Any more questions or debate? Would someone like to make a motion? Consider adopting an ordinance meeting section 2.0405C, term of office.
Where's that at? Oh, the alternate motion.
I'll make a motion. Get the right one? 5A. Yeah. Adopt ordinance number 2-2025, an ordinance amending section 2.04.050C, term of office, commencement of term of chapter 2.04, City Council of the Florence City Municipal Code, and amending or repealing all ordinances or regulations not in conformity herewith.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Okay, and for clarification, this would be moving the,
This ordinance would be moving the mayor's seating to after the certification of election results, but then leaving the other three in January. at the
where
date-
we
at the
have
date
it,
certain.
where we have it now.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Stone,
Yes.
Counselor Van Houten,
Yes.
Counselor Mergelman,
Yes.
Counselor Gardner,
Yes.
Counselor McKinnon,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf.
Yes. Motion passes. All right. All right, where are we at here? New business C, consider adopting a resolution, B, consider adopting an ordinance amending Florence, Colorado Municipal Code, Chapter 204.101, City Council Rules of Procedures. City Manager.
So as we stated in the previous item, a lot of the rules of procedure are based on both statute and your municipal code. Because of the changes to Title II, that necessitated updating your city council rules of procedure. And we also use that opportunity, as you all directed previously, we want to view this as a living document. So kind of going through, clarifying some items that weren't clear, rearranging some wording. Most of your changes weren't really what we would consider to be material changes, other than the housekeeping ones related to Title II. There were a couple of bigger material changes related to feedback that we've received in the meetings. Both of these are in Chapter 5, Meeting Guidelines and Procedure. The first is in Section A, general. This was a safety issue. Chief and I had kind of discussed this a little bit, so wanted to bring it for your consideration. In the right of floor subsection, a statement has been added clarifying that no one may approach the dais without first being recognized by the chair. And approaching the dais is defined as stepping in the area in front of the podium, but that just requires the chair to recognize that they are allowed to come forward to give out handouts or anything like that, or just to be in that general area. And the second is also in Chapter 5, Section D, agenda format. In the public comment subsection, a clarification has been added to the section stating that the council as a body has the ability to determine if additional time is to be granted to any speaker. This has come up on occasion, and there was no clear answer in the previous version of Rules of Procedure, so we wanted to present that as an option for your consideration. Most of the other things are clarification, rearrangement of words, a couple little things here and there, but those are your big material things outside of the Title II changes that we were just incorporating that Title II language into here instead of the previous code language.
Never give a lawyer a chance to look at the same document twice, because we'll find words to change just for the heck of it. I'm joking, but there was a little bit of that, but a lot of just addressing things that had come up.
At this point, is there any public comment in regards to the City Council rules of procedures? Okay, questions from the council then?
I just want to say thank you for this, because, I mean, reading the old and then comparing it with the new words and the strike and the clarifications, yeah, it was amazing. So thank you.
I would like to particularly thank you for the Chapter 3, the conduct of the council, and the conduct for us. And again, just good reminders of our contact with public, other agencies, the city manager and staff, and make sure we stay in our lane and those things like we talked about in the workshop beforehand.
Well, yeah, and it is a living document, right? So please, to either me or Amy, if there's any feedback or things that aren't working or just something new, happy to adjust and add and pass it again.
Any more comments or questions? Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make the motion to adopt ordinance number 3-2025, an ordinance amending Florence, Colorado Municipal Code Chapter 2.04.010, City Council Rules of Procedure.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll make a second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor McKinnon?
Yes.
Counselor Gardner?
Yes.
Counselor Van Houten?
Yes.
Counselor Mergelman?
Yes.
Counselor Stone?
Yes.
Mayor Wolf?
Yes. All right, next, item 5C, consider adopting a resolution providing for the adoption of the Fifth Amendment addendum of the Agreement of Water Fees of the Regional Water Agreement. City Manager.
Yes, so this fifth addendum to the Agreement on Water Fees of the Regional Water Agreement was approved by the Regional Water Board at their meeting on Tuesday, this past Tuesday. So what this does is it still has the same tap fees as what you saw before, but it clarifies the cash in lieu of shares process a little more. Because previously it gave a value for cash in lieu of shares, which was $2,500 in that Fourth Amendment, but it didn't really provide any guardrails to ensure that the program was sustainable and responsible. So what the fifth addendum does is it pulls the cash in lieu of shares information out of Schedule B and adds a Schedule C, where it gives the exchange rate of $2,500, and then adopts a process for accepting cash in lieu of shares, which includes review by the Regional Water Board, municipality approval, an annual cap on cash in lieu transactions, and developer contribution limits. So this is just designed so that you can't over-rely on cash in lieu of shares and potentially create a situation where we have relied on cash, but there are not going to be that many shares to purchase. this was particularly pertinent for the city of Florence in the case of like a re-subdivision or something like that. We saw that with the recent cash in lieu of shares transaction that we did. While not necessarily harmful or bad for the system, it did give us the ability to go, oh, there wasn't really a way we could have stopped that if we thought that it was harmful to the system, because it was a subdivision process and such that had already gone through. So all those normal stop points, like, do you want to annex this in? Do you want to do these things, had already taken place. So this is just putting guardrails on that to ensure sustainability. And in the future, you'll want to go back and determine what you want your annual cap on cash in lieu transactions to be in potential developer contribution limits. But staff would like to have the opportunity to study that a little further and bring you good information. This is just adopting what the Regional Water Board has adopted, and each entity will kind of have to adopt that on their own, but Regional Water Board has adopted this at this point.
And do we have any public comment or questions on this topic? Questions from the council? Where do cash in lieu of shares, where does that go in our budget, and what's that?
So the cash in lieu of shares goes into the Water Enterprise Fund. We don't have a separate fund for it, but we actually, on the general ledger for that, we hold it separately. So we only use it for the purpose of purchasing shares, because the intent of that money is to purchase the shares that were lost by not accepting a share. So we hold it separately, we keep it separate, it's just not in its own separate fund, because one of the directives from our auditors was to try and reduce the number of extraneous funds we have, but we ledger it separately so that we keep an accounting of how much have we received and how much have we spent out. At this point, we've only received cash in lieu for 7.5 shares from the transaction that I was speaking of previously, and we've used it to purchase the 2 shares that have come available. So you still have 5.5 worth of cash in lieu of shares at that 2,500 a piece. So 12,500, 1375, 13,750 or so approximately. But we hold that out separately in our accounting process.
Because I know union shares are precious,
Yes.
and eventually they're going to run out, and so I know like other entities have to go way up the Arkansas Valley to try to find shares to purchase. And
Well, and that was a bit of the point of this, and I know we spoke about this in the regional water meeting, was you could potentially run into a scenario where you had one of these larger home developers or something come down and have the capital to purchase 100 shares, to front that capital, but we would probably never be able to replace those. So it was just trying to ensure that we can sustain the system over time, and that there are some guardrails around that where you're making sure that whatever decision you make is ensuring the ultimate sustainability of the system.
any other questions? Do we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion, we adopt resolution 1-2025, a resolution providing for the adoption of the 5th addendum of the agreement on water fees of the regional water agreement by the city of Florence, Colorado.
And do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Mergelman,
Aye.
Counselor Stone,
Yes.
Counselor Van Houten,
Yes.
Counselor Gardner,
Yes.
Counselor McKinnon,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf.
Yes. All right, item 6, reports, city council. Hi. James?
So I'd like to, recognize the Florence band, their jazz band concert that they had last Friday night. They did a Mardi Gras band dinner. It was a huge success. The Army 4ID jazz band came down from Colorado Springs, spent all day with the jazz band kids and showed them some things and taught them things, and just really made a huge day over there at Pathfinder. Want to shout out to the band boosters, all of the parents and families, and tell you what, the community that came out to that place was packed. I believe that about 280 tickets were sold. So it was just an amazing turnout, and the community just stepped up immensely. So thank you very much to everyone. Appreciate that.
And I know there was a Saturday basketball event going on, and they were playing, and the comments I heard from opposing players' parents were just so complimentary. So it was good. Okay. Riddle.
I attended the Fremont Economical Development Council. Nothing there, a lot of stuff going on. Nothing right now that directly affects Florence. Made the first annual meeting of the farmers market. Starting to put that together for can't remember how many years. But it's a bunch. So that's getting started.
Brenda.
I have nothing.
Okay. Tammy. Okay. Gail.
Preservation was last Tuesday, and there is an idea on a plaque that will be presented to those properties who will be designated or have been designated as Florence historical properties. Looks like we're going to be working with Florence High School and designing this, and so we're still looking at the product to be used, etc. So this is in the development stage. So again, we're trying to find people interested in putting their property on the Florence Historic Registry. So we're open for that.
Very good. I'm glad to see that collaboration with the school district again. I mean, lots of things going on there. Mayor's report. Attended a couple senior center coffee chats and had good discussions with people. You know, I think they're becoming a little more comfortable now, saying, "Hey, you know, what about this issue or that issue?" And I know Chief was there on a couple of them, and I know they appreciate that. I attended the business after hours at the chamber, which was very good. I always meet somebody new there and get new perspectives of what's going on in the city. Attended the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Just wanted to go and see one of those in action, and talk to them about some issues that related to the city afterwards. Regional water. We talked about the addendum we just did. I know the superintendent also reported that our system's in good shape. The new bar screen that we put in worked well when there was a mishap and things got jammed up, and the whole system worked enough to where it shut itself down, didn't damage itself, and very happy with that. And so he says we are in good shape. Attended the Tech Night Out at Emerging Campus, and have to give a shout out to Sarah Hinckley, who's the co-founder and owner of Barn Owl Precision Agriculture. And it's a fascinating little business they got going. And she wasn't there because she was in Washington, D.C. presenting this new system that they have. It's automated. It involves, doing drone surveys first, and then, getting these little robots out there in the field, and they can do the weeding, or they can go over like a hemp field. That's things I learned. Hemp field, and if you have a male hemp plant amongst all the females, it can destroy everything. So they can somehow tell which is the male hemp plant, and they go over there and drop down and snatch it up, and away it's gone. Just without having people, boots on the ground out there doing it. It's lots of good things going there. I'm staying updated with the CML, the State House reports. That's a real good service that CML provides for us, looking at all the legislation coming up with municipalities in mind. How is this going to help you? How is it going to hurt you? And so they give us heads up. Things don't come as a surprise. And the last thing, and I was talking with Dan, he said he'd let me present this one. It's about the PUC and Black Hills Energy. It's getting close to the end of this process. In the beginning, the original rate increase was projected to be 18% for residential, 10% for business. Black Hills came back, reduced the residential to 14 and the small business to 9.5. As of today, that data was today, presented out. Right now on the books, it looks like, and they finally did this, they finally divided residentials into low, average, and high usage. Because what was happening in the past, they would say, like the original residential 18%, but the lowest user group in there, the single, the retired single person living in, in their house and not using much electricity, they were going to get zapped 21%. All right, so that has changed. They listened, the report from our attorney said they listened to a lot of our testimony on that, because that's one of the things that we really hammered. And so right now the PUC update looks like this. If you are a residential low usage, you use 300 kilowatt hours a month, your rate's only going to be 5.5% increase. 600 kilowatt user, about 6.2, and a large residential 7.1. All right, so it's not zero like a lot of people thought, but PUC said they do have a right to have a reasonable increase for reasonable improvements and capital things that they have to do for the law. Small general, these will be your small business people. If you only use about 1,200 kilowatt hours a month, it's a 6.4% rate. And then for the 1,500 kilowatt and 1,900 kilowatt users, the rate would be about 6.3%. So not a complete, no Black Hills Energy, you can't raise your rates at all, but it's far better than what the original came out at and what their second proposed came out at. And I think it was a good investment in our Florence. We went together with Canyon, and I think it was a good investment for the citizens of Florence, and I am really happy, especially for the residential low users, because that's where I think the big win was for everybody. Okay. All right, that's my mayor's report. City manager.
So you may have seen on the city manager report that the RFQ for the master plan was released with an original deadline for submissions of February 27th. However, we did receive some inquiries about extending the deadline, so we reached out to anyone who had reached out to us, worked with legal counsel, and did extend that deadline by an additional 2 weeks in hopes of getting a better variety of proposals to bring in front of you once we've closed that process. Outside agency funding process for 2024, the year-end work session will be prior to the April 7th meeting, and then we will open the application process again right after that. We'll have details on exact dates of when that will close and such later this week, and we will send out to all of the previous applicants all that information. We have started the last phase of the North Pikes Peak project. Did want to let everyone know we've gotten questions about 7th Street. We are aware of the issues and some of the deterioration that traffic rerouting is causing. They're trying to put dirt, rock, etc. in those potholes that are being created on a pretty regular basis, because there will be no point in doing a permanent fix until after this project is done. So then we will look at what a permanent fix for that is going to look at. But in the meantime, Sam is going to do his best to try and mitigate it with what we can. But if you see anything horrible, please let us know, even though I know he's out there keeping an eye on it. He's out there all day, every day with that North Pikes Peak project. And finally, we have received some questions on the code enforcement issue across Main Street here. The police department, code enforcement have made contact in addition to the formal notifications. The contact seems promising, but we will keep that on an expedited, timeline to ensure that it gets cleaned up as soon as that notification period is passed. Then we will move forward with abatement if we need to, if they don't come in or offer us exactly when they're going to get it cleaned up in a very timely manner. But it sounds like you had a promising contact with them today. Okay.
All right, thank you. City attorney, anything?
Yeah, you did a great job summarizing the Black Hills. I just wanted to say it's not 100% final, although the changes at this point would be minor or you know, maybe not even any different than the numbers you just said, just some details. And then there is an appeal process. I don't at this point anticipate that would be something that the city would be interested in, although I'm happy to brief you on that when the time comes. I think that is a really big win for Florence. I think you guys listened to a lot of your constituents and citizens here. You know, you took action, and I do agree with Steve. We've heard kind of time and time again that our testimony, and in particular the highlights that we gave from the Florence community, was heard by the PUC and did factor into the decision. I'm not espousing, you know, we would have loved for the numbers to be even lower. They had not had a rate increase in 8 years, so if you annualize it, it's less than one per year. And of course, that's what their lawyers have been saying the whole time. But just wanted to give you that little bit of context too. But big win for Florence, and I hope your citizens are happy for the actions you guys took to make that happen.
Thank you. City Clerk, anything? Okay. This time, does anybody have any reason to move into executive session? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Yeah. Yes. All right. We are adjourned at 7:24.